Have you ever had a conversation with your dyslexic loved one that went sideways? It can be frustrating when words get tangled and important messages get lost in translation. Sometimes communicating with a dyslexic can lead to frustration and stress both for the person who has dyslexia and the parent, spouse, partner, or friend who is engaged in the conversation. Removing the communication barriers that dyslexia generates reduces frustration and strengthens relationships. Reading problems from an early age produce deep-seated emotional scars. The dyslexic child develops ways of coping with the pain and guilt of being made fun of for not easily reading. These coping methods may help the person with dyslexia emotionally survive, but they can easily get in the way of effective conversation. A dyslexic may have developed the habit of pointing out someone else's faults or mistakes to deflect attention away from the dyslexia-driven problems. The dyslexic may respond to a simple question from their loved one with an unexpected burst of accusations or list of faults that really have nothing to do with the question. If the non-dyslexic doesn't remember dyslexia can cause deep emotional pain and responds defensively, the conversation can easily turn away from the purpose of the question and become a heated argument. Here's a tip. Both parties in the conversation need to be conscious of the impact of dyslexia on their conversation. This may be hard to do initially, but with practice, this awareness can eliminate a lot of miscommunication and unnecessary stress. The person with dyslexia may respond to a conversational question with an answer that doesn't match the question they are being asked. This can lead to a variety of responses from the non-dyslexic, who may ask the same question again, use different words to rephrase the question, or react emotionally because they think their dyslexic loved one is being evasive. If the person who does not have dyslexia thinks the other person is intentionally avoiding a direct answer to their question, it can damage not just the effectiveness of the conversation, but their overall relationship. Of course, the dyslexic may be intentionally evading the question, but what really is happening most of the time is that the dyslexic has formed a different question in his or her mind than the one being asked. This is not due to a lack of intelligence or a hearing problem, it's due to a difference in how the dyslexic brain is structured. Short-term memory in the dyslexic brain is much smaller. Also, the part of the dyslexic brain that converts sounds into concepts is not the same size. These parts of the brain have been reallocated to other functions that can produce great talents and abilities for the dyslexic. In fact, the memory reallocation was recently cited by an academic study as a major advance in the evolution of the human race. That advance comes with a price when it comes to effective conversation. Processing the conversation takes a little extra time because of the shortage of working memory. When the non-dyslexic encounters a strange response to a question, take a deep breath before responding. Try to rephrase your question in a different way using clear language to the best of your ability. Then give your dyslexic loved one time to analyze your question. And if you are a dyslexic, take your own deep breath before attacking the structure of the question. Deep down, you probably are aware of your challenge with directly answering questions. Remember that the question being asked had a reason behind it that almost always is not trying to embarrass you. Your loved one may simply need some information. Try your best to figure out what the question is and give it your best shot to give an answer back that matches the question. If the same question has been reformatted a second time and the answer still doesn't seem to be connected to the question asked, one of the parties needs to call a timeout. That person needs to point out in a gentle, non-accusing way that dyslexia may be involved in the situation. If the parties to the conversation have discussed this before, then they can work together on fixing the misunderstanding and working together. This, too, may take a ton of practice, but recognizing that dyslexia is involved can reduce a ton of negative emotion. Here's another effect of reduced short-term memory in people who have dyslexia. It can be very difficult for a dyslexic to duplicate the correct order of a string of items that is being presented to them, especially in a conversation. Even for a non-dyslexic, keeping 4 or 5 items in order can be a challenge, especially if other things are happening at the same time. For a person who is dyslexic, keeping track of a long list can be torture. Think about it. You've probably encountered a situation where your phone or computer doesn't have enough memory to do something. Why should a human being with dyslexia be any different? Remembering what item number 4 was, and that it comes after items 1, 2, and 3 can exhaust the dyslexic's short-term memory and patience. Here's a tip. Always remember that this issue of keeping many things in order is not due to a lack of intelligence. It is due to a reduced amount of short-term memory that is being used elsewhere in the dyslexic brain. Try and limit parts of a conversation to 1 or 2 things at a time. Mutually agree on these items, and if need be, what comes first before proceeding to the next item. Get agreement between the two of you on what the items are and in what order they are in the overall list before going on to the next item. Any of these dyslexic-driven conversational situations can be frustrating, but here's something to remember. The same thing that causes communication problems can create some terrific capabilities. If you are the non-dyslexic, take a step back and think of the creative solutions your dyslexic has come up with for the problems you face. If you look closely, I'll bet you can find several times where your loved one has looked at a situation in a unique way and come up with an amazing solution for the problem you are facing. Look for the positive wows that your dyslexic loved one comes up with. If you are the person with dyslexia, remember that the impact of it on your life is not just negative. Dyslexia can give you some exceptional gifts that you can use to enrich your life and the life of your loved one. Focus on what you can do in advance and enhance those gifts each time dyslexia causes issues. If you are the person with dyslexia, remember that the impact of it on your life is not just negative. Dyslexia can give you some exceptional gifts that you can use to enrich your life and the life of your loved one. Each time dyslexia causes issues, focus on what you can do to enhance and advance these gifts. Always work toward dealing with dyslexia together. Standing side by side to overcome the effects of dyslexia in your conversation is much healthier than pointing fingers at each other. And working together against dyslexia will strengthen your relationship and draw you closer together. In summary, it takes practice and patience to overcome the effects of dyslexia in a conversation. Getting past the defense mechanisms dyslexics commonly use to deal with prior emotional harm can be challenging. Recognizing what is happening during a conversation may not be easy, but is still a skill that you can acquire. Using the tips presented here and others that are available can go a long way in reducing unnecessary stress and confrontation. Work on battling dyslexia together with your loved one. Do you have a story about talking with your dyslexic? Share it in the comments below. And to learn more about dyslexia and how you can help your dyslexic loved one, get your copy of Loving Your Dyslexic at lovingyourdyslexic.com.